something weird. Like, either if it was weird, or whether we can make it, weirder. And it was just dark and a little bit of siren, but also pretty cold for this Taco Bell. So I felt like I had the chicken before Halloween, but I might not have it next year if this wasn't split the pool in two, like we were flipping it. Man, someone had the remote, but we had it, and it was here, and it was the light. We could flip it back. Like that's some of it too. That's some of the gas leaking. We could drill in as a light. We have this remote. We'd be the light for it, because it's very black. It's just so black you probably rust it somewhere. Admit it taps. It's a battery. It could probably sell back as a hearing aid or something. I don't know. Anyone would sell you a heater. You'd probably have a better one and just know the rest quickly. It would just look at it different. Man, it sat right on top of Taco Bell like it shelled in. Look at crabs. Maybe I moved it there. I poorly. It's like I would siren use it, but obviously. I had the remote there. Threw something else out. I'm looking crabs and I'm just 22. You know? I'll cut this. I still have the reactor. It didn't look crabs later. I cut it a couple times and it was me. Cutting for crabs. Like I cut it down like I cut it something cooler. I was burning in like I'm burning too hot. I'm cooling for crabs. Cool there. I may be hot somewhere. But like she's looking at me for it. No? This is a bunch of stuff I could cut for good clothing. This is a silk I have. And he comes to me still. And yes, we're all still women when we have this first puricade. She's ratting in as a shell. She mostly had it there looking crabs. She's hella Russian. Like, no one would cut her there for crabs. She's a valuable, even if she was a crab. She's so veterinary. Look at how she isn't entirely eating me looking crabs. Like, she isn't already looking crabs and diving somewhere, standing on me different, rusting different, pecking different. Like, everything is right for you. But if you were looking crabs somewhere, you may be looked at it different as crabs. And someone was holding on different. And this one is just small. And it's looking crabs. Like, it doesn't have enough. And it had the cereal, and it's looking crabs like it's trying to find the fruit. Goddamn, Monkey D. Luffy could be anywhere. Who is he to you? Did you corporalize anyone, even as anime, that you acknowledge and don't step on? Like it's a river. Like it's weird. Man, I do that and cut it for so much tea I don't have. It's like looking crabs. If you have all of that tea, that's fuck tea. We're cutting for it like we're cutting for coral. We're looking crabs. We could be anyone. We'd be a family by now, and we know who we are. We're either any coral, many coral, or we also rusted Ableton as like a shell that could be a daughter to us and technically was, and was bruised, the same way. We all cut for it. How we admit to the alcohol. We have the antibiotic, and we're looking crabs. Like, we're burning. We're basically reacting to something else and getting cold. Like, we're looking crabs. We'd react some of it out and maybe get something different how we burn the remote. If we had this one, we had enough infrared. We could broadcast it as like someone who wanted it back, as maybe a light that saw us and wasn't a drone and just stood there as statue and was a tree, and also like had someone looking crabs like it was a moon, and also could rust back as something that you didn't see and was a blind shade. But it would cut infrared anywhere, like it was looking for it. It was looking for someone who pressed it and heard the clicks. Like, you heard them loud and it was a radio. Battery would cut for infrared for a radio if you knew that one. It was quick. Battery was quick for that one, at least if it was quick. But it would cut like it was a paper to somebody. It was a nice one. Wouldn't cut it. Would cut it for something. It wasn't sticky. I felt it. It was a good one. I could cut it on and off. It wouldn't rust on and off. It would just emit me for temperature. And say, hey, yeah, I didn't burn it. I wasn't even a fan. I didn't know your temperature. Or I probably burned it out like 22 something. And killed it. I don't know. I cut for crabs. I was looking crabs. I'd look at you other ways and look for crabs. And be looking crabs and just have some heat that I'm only burning there. Like, Aurora is weird. If we can really cut for the crabs, we'd cut some of it out and just blow some of it out and be Ableton still. It'd just be egg noise. It's not bathroom or cutting for crabs or someone stole all of it and ensure it's really built as weird for the ocean. But it's just cut crabs. And it's like looking for crabs and cutting crabs and like looking crabs to us now as any coral and many coral, and we've corporately Ableton at least as someone who can resuscitate it as Nintendo's and explain it as a near extinct ecosystem. And it's kind of cutting the computer like we cut it, like the child had some metal there and it rusted there. Like we did have some water there and we cut for some salts there that were different. And we didn't really have salt, but we were cutting for crabs. Like we had something for ocean. Some of it we were just cutting for crabs. We were swimming there for gills. Like we're cutting crabs. Maybe we did better. We're looking crabs. We're looking better. We're cutting for crabs. Something has it somewhere. Probably someone wanted it a potency we'd sell enough stabilizer here purely and might know a good one. And like we were looking for it like the ocean had the label. Like we couldn't ferment it and someone was tossing it there and giving it back as like a Saudi ship that had maybe a barnacle we could find and we'd sirenize it well. Like we would know how far and that one just wouldn't be cutting for crabs. It legally wasn't a ship, like it didn't go into the ocean anymore, like the Nintendo didn't as any part and wasn't metal. Like it didn't cut for crabs in the tree and it wasn't shot. It was Minecrafted really well. It wasn't cut for crabs, it wasn't looking crabs. It was just existing really well as the onion and a lot of satire. And was, maybe if you turn it off and on like a light switch, you have one. And it's a lot of light and just could be days to you. But it's cutting your reactor for crabs and just wasn't cameras to you ever. Was cutting for crabs. And man was looking for him like it had the crabs cut for him, looked for him, looking crabs. Like you could be looking crabs and have coral next. You could explain as two HTML images that were also bits to you. Like it together that was a bit. Those were parts of the bit. There were parts of the switches, and it was not fun to explain. But if you were that early and you were looking for, and you literally were looking for crabs, like maybe you cut it there, or it's different parts of it later. Like it was hard to explain. Like it was all there. It was just cutting for crabs like there. Like it figured some of us went in. We were tobacco back, like they had the version. I think they cut for eyes there and already had ours. Like we had blue something. I don't know how we have this green. Like we're cutting for crabs for it, disguising some things have some colors. Doing it as some crabs. Like man, we're cutting for crabs. See someone good. Like we almost have the language. We could do it anywhere where we could do it anywhere, and we just have enough of it. We'd be like cutting for some crabs, looking for crabs, looking crabs. I figure I didn't batter it. Like this one didn't touch too hard. No one would touch it. They know, the rat was on it. I was washing my hand every time. Like if you're gonna ride the bicycle or anything, don't do it. Like write it down maybe. It didn't cut and it had Celsius. I could be cutting it different and just be looking crabs and be looking for blankets that were different. And man, they'd be soaked to someone if she cut them and were Marrakesh for them, like she knew the spider. Oh, man, we could just have it somewhere Japanese. We would explain differently, and it wouldn't all be in the ecosystem, ocean, earth, things we concealed as people as who flew different. Oh my god, I don't even know. Pilots just had it bad. I don't know if we're all cutting for crowds, but like right now, like we don't have air or gasoline, and we're cutting the runway different, or just looking crabs. Like we already sank for runway, somebody landed on us, and like someone crashed the plane at Linode. Is that the sink at Linode that I didn't get for whole? The plane didn't have it for me, and you just had a predator for Gino. Because if that's the predator, we cut it as a couple more hydras where it was as the same genome, and just explain that we had a complicated one. Cut it down like we were cutting it. We had the request there and had ISOs of them like we were counting up. Man, we had some kind of Fibonacci cutting for crabs how it had too many. Like no one cached it, no one burned it anymore. But it was something cutting for crabs, and it was like in our gas looking crabs. Like someone iced it so cold it could be like cold. Oh my god. Oh my god. I thought they stole everyone's catalytic converter before anyone had this river. Man, when we cut for it, we were cutting for crabs, and we're probably Moose stand. Moose probably had it for us after we were looking crabs. We were looking for crabs. We God damn, I don't know who anyone could be invisible, and we could just stand on people tall enough, and it was like a shoal to enough people No one carried us anymore. We were just standing out as a bunch of invisibility cloaks, and we were like doing radiation weird for different people. Like we were all under the cloaks, and it was kind of hot to us. How those were all hot. Like they all had hot computers. Like they were looking for crabs, cutting for crabs. Didn't see something. Maybe they'd cut you for crabs. No one knew. It was a he job to us. If we had one and it truly was ours, and we just did it right, man, we cut for something different. We just cut different for it. We'd probably cut different for it every time, and we'd slip on it a little bit. Like, hey, we did move it. We proved it. We did have the head. We weren't cutting for crabs. We had it. We had a little bit there, and we're so round. And we just have a little bit more brain. We can Sirenese differently, and some of it's just so light. We have the light like we have it two ways. It can also show us here, and it's just darker, but it's also cutting for crabs. Man, if you didn't cut that crab, you might not have had the light bulb. This was more money to you. And wasn't cutting for crabs. It cut for like weird other things you could Sirenese. If you wanted to cut someone for your crabs and would cut them for enough of this tapeworm, like it was Taco Bell to you, you probably had it like fried it eggs ago. And it's just still cool. Like man, it fried for probably something that wasn't Taco Bell, and it was microwave to me. But it was good. Like I'm holding it. My dwarf wants some. It's some of the acid tube that wants us all. I wouldn't remind him he wasn't that one. I was only Sirenesing it, Sirenesing him and pretending I was feeding it to him. Now he chewed on it and had the sample. Man, he had that one good. He was experimenting how he was Taco Bell and was a woman and was also talked about a couple of ways that could be coral, cutting crabs, looking for crabs. Like you maybe frack some gasoline into the burrito and cut parts of it. Like no one knew what was even telling. Tapeworm to you and you passed it different. Could be some kind of man. Like if there was a man that was entirely a rat, it was probably passed here long ago and wasn't even an ocean to you. Like it's all bones here in finished plants. Cut for like if you point that way and it's actually that way, it's literally cut for crabs. Man, cut for crabs. Other way, looking crabs. Like they have too much here and they'll crab in and shoal in and open bottles and shit. Man, cut for that way. Crab in, crab in. Cut for crab. Man, if you cut down there, border cuts you for a crab. How Trump walled it. How someone shouldered the child and everyone did it to everyone somehow, and it was acid tube and gas. And no one was doing it here. Like, it was literally ratting out. It was in a cage. And someone could rat it, just admitted to the genome that someone handed off something for sample and maybe took alcohol and got a pirate there they could have. And maybe he was cutting some of it in when he was just looking for crabs, cutting crabs, and didn't know how much of the mine she was. But she was fracking him good, like she was smaller, getting smaller, something. Like he was cutting for crabs, like he could be all black how he fracked. And goddamn, people were bad for gasoline at fucking in Alaska. If you weren't in a roar, you weren't a nuclear family somehow shitting everywhere, just melting things out as ice trunks you would sell as a Taco Bell and just selling them water. It's like cutting for crabs and looking for crabs. If you're looking for crabs, you're not actually looking crabs. Yeah, you're not actually literally the coral. Oh my god. You could just cut for crabs. You could go that way. And you'd be a little bit of looking crabs. Probably enough. We'd pull you up when you dive. You'd be young enough. You wouldn't cut for so much coral there. You dived out with lead and dived with most of it. Most are helium like you didn't know which mine talked. Mine, what could be a minefield to you ballooned. Man, I would just say cut them all for crabs. When we have that reactor and we're actually designing scuba here, how we 3D printed it back in the war, it's like we assumed it did it itself and we were printing it itself and did ours different for different things that cut us for crabs. Like man, if you wanted to cut me in with the honeycomb, I had like some kind of honeysuckle for, and I suckled like it was blowing bubbles to you in some kind of glue somewhere. Like man, it's like cutting for crabs, and we have it in the gas mask, and it is looking crabs. Like our dwarf could take it to us. He wants a little bit more. He'll admit he's passing it, and he wants some of the rice. Like it wasn't all cheese and beans, and that's the mother. If she has something else, it looks good to her, and she'll look both in the eye, like it seizes her, like she has a Taco Bell next her daughter wants, and it's planting there, and it's looking crabs, and it's cutting for crabs. Like no one boiled the rice, but it's going into someone, and man, it's cracking somewhere at somebody's popcorn, and They're eating something, they're burning in their hand, and it's some of the fuel keeping their hand warm. And the reactor's just good here. It could cut a parasite in. Had some metal seed it would call bush and it rolled around, rusted everywhere. Was in Australia and probably a mine in the ocean. Dangerous if you don't have a boat. Barnacle, yes. Looking for crabs, cut for crabs, cutting for crabs even. Cut for crabs. Like, man, that one would roll as a lot of seed if you knew the reactor. You didn't cut it for crabs fast. Like you were looking crabs. Maybe if you cut it both directions, you were cut for crabs right now, like you were looking crabs up in Finland, and they were cut for our crabs here in Seattle, and they're like cut for crabs over the war. Like which one had the reactor? Any coral or many coral? I had better things I could cyrenize as an Asian way of shit Chinese yesterday, and it technically was a restaurant for my war. But I'm burning something here that's a complicated microwave, and I'm cutting it for crabs and looking at it. Like I'm not even looking at it very well, but I have a siren maybe looking at it, and it's like a red dwarf to me. It could be red, and it was cutting for lots of it, and it was just eating, and it would maybe be 5:30 before it was dark in here. We had some aurora. I was closed in, checking my lock, and I had two dwarfs here eating my Taco Bell. I ate corporally for the month, and it was my corporal. That was the $3 I'd get if I didn't spend it all on Taco Bell somewhere and eat something. I'd give some to my dwarf. How it's illegal Chinese and he plants it different. How he does it for the vent and it comes back as his different cut for crabs. But man, someone has a reactor. They legally react all of it. It literally is their rat. It tells them everything. If it's rat, it's still Indian to you, and it's like an animal they don't have. They want. Like they always cut that one. Like some of the shoal does it. There's too much bone. We cut it for less tungsten if we had something that didn't have our seeds. So this one just didn't do it for very well. If it cut for crabs and we were siren using like this, man, we might have cut in for crabs. We wanted some of that one. This one was cutting like it was painted different, maybe painted for us. Aw, she was cutting for crabs. She just had a lot of eyes, so she was in a lot of cages, crabbing in and crabbing out. She was a mother, like she could be a veterinarian that could be mine and just go in and out cutting for crabs a little bit. And probably cut for crabs like I didn't know who had one, didn't have the child there, but I definitely fracked for somebody's gasoline and knew it was the child's. I was pushing it like a Nintendo, and it was like one of my crabs that was capacity to her. She didn't like it for my Nintendo, but I just take the jacket off and hand it to the Boy Scout quick. And then he had about half the tank. How he's hitting it for crabs. He couldn't breathe, but then he cut it for crabs and cut about half, and then he had it like he was in the ocean. It was coming to him fast, and he was small cutting for crabs. But then he had it back, and he cut for the crabs. He admitted like it was fitting him pretty well. It had insects he could eat, and it wasn't even a reactor that literally date raped it right there. It just had a lot of them that could do it fast, and he didn't have anything he burned like a Chinese thing for. It was cutting in for crabs, out for crabs. Man, if you're burning some ISO, you're probably a Boy Scout there and you're cut for crabs. Like you're reading it now, like this has some of the genome, and it is cut for the crabs. Oh, if we all cut that fuel, we were cutting that crab. Hmm. Okay.